Our next video is going to concentrate on connective tissue. Connective tissue is the most diverse amount of tissue because it could be blood, bone, tendons, fat, so many different types of things. But connective tissue is going to be used for support, protection, binding, and just having other tissues together. So what you're going to see with connective tissue is there's so many different types of tissue that comes together as connective. Now, one of the things you're probably looking through is capillaries make sense because they connect the body throughout. Fat cells, they store things, and fat is distributed throughout the body, so they kind of get added. These little guys over here are different types of white blood cells. And there's some red blood cells in here somewhere, I'm sure. I just can't find them. But these are all different types of things that float throughout the body and protect us. So they get lumped into this group too. So connective just doesn't mean touching one thing to the next, but it also means unifying the body together. And that's how these red blood cells kind of get added. Connective tissue is used for structure, support to each other. So an example would be like tendons, ligaments, basement membrane. Remember that basement membrane that the epithelial tissue touches? So there's some connective tissue right there, and that makes sense. It's connecting epithelial to a muscle or whatever, and it's going to use that basement membrane to do that. Support and protection would be bones, would definitely be an example of that. They're part of the connective tissue group as well. Stores energy, so all that adipose tissue, which is another name for fat, is basically an area that we store tissue, and we use fat for either storing energy away or protection. So like around our pelvis we have a bit of fat, and it's designed to protect our pelvis and our hip joints. Movement and transport of materials like blood, white blood cells, red blood cells, and we'll talk about them more a little bit. So connective tissue, this is a short list, and we'll talk about each of them just kind of briefly, but fibrous connective tissue would be one of them, which we'll talk about in a second. Cartilage, they're going to basically sit between your spine, sit between your knees, and they basically make it so your bone doesn't rub on bone. It gives it a soft protection, so you can still articulate your legs and your arms and your spine without rubbing on each other. Bone is a connective tissue, and we'll talk about them in a second. They do some odd things, like the inside of bone produces all of your white and red blood cells, and then of course blood. So fibrous connective tissue, this is going to be the fibers associated with these specific tissues, so like collagen fibers. They're made of collagen, a protein, and they're tough and flexible. So these are allowed for bending and moving. Collagen is something that some people move from one place to another on their body to fill wrinkles and things like that. But they're designed to be sort of a filler, tough, flexible, movable. So that's why people put it in their face, because there's a lot of mobility happening in their cheeks and forehead. Reticulating fibers, these are thin collagen fibers coated in glycoprotein. And they're going to be sponge-like. They're for organs like spleen and lymph nodes to sort of be able to move around and still be attached. And then elastic fibers. These are going to be, just like the name says, stretchy, recoil, gives elasticity. So like if your skin didn't have that elastic membrane underneath, somebody could pinch your cheeks and literally snap off some tissue, which would be gross. Your lungs, you'll actually be able to push on the cadaver's lungs in 202, and you'll see that they'll bounce back. And arteries. Arteries have a little muscle in it, and they allow you to bounce back. Fibrous connective tissues, the cells that are associated with would be like fibroblasts. They produce little fibers and ground substances in a matrix, so when you bleed, these fibroblasts will actually be like particulates in your blood. So when you do get a cut, these guys get stuck in that clot, and they start the process of you from stop bleeding, and then that's going to be the site where healing is going to take place. And then your immune system, we're going to definitely cover this way more in Bio 202, but you have these things called macrophages. Phage means something that's going to destroy something, and these are going to be large cells that basically can go around chasing things and killing things that they feel don't belong in the right place. So your liver cell moves somewhere else, it kills it. Your body gets invaded by bacteria or viruses, which happens on the hourly basis. These guys are going to come and just destroy them. Leukocytes, these are white blood cells, and they are designed to kill certain things but not others. We'll talk about them more in 202. Plasma cells, they create these things called antibodies, and these antibodies are used when you're sick, and these antibodies are basically ways that you can coat these bad guys and call over like macrophages and things to basically eat them. And then mast cells, they produce this thing called histamine, and they're going to be done in allergic reactions and a couple of other things. These guys, this little group that we just talked about, is really specific. If you just know these guys as the terms like we have here, it'll be perfect for your exam. But in 202 and micro, we'll really just like blow these up and really talk about them. The last part of this group is going to be adipose, which is just fat cells. These are going to be cells that expand when there's a lot of fat being stored in them. And then when that lipids are needed in the body, or the fat is needed in the body, the adipose cells shrink. Different types of fibrous connective tissue is going to be fascia, which is going to be like a filler material that surrounds everything. These are going to be loose fibrous connective tissue, and they're going to be designed to basically take up some space. And adipose, we'll talk about a couple of these in a minute. And then, well, let's start talking about some now. Loose fibrous connective tissue, there's going to be these two. The two that we're going to discuss here are the areolar, and they're really loose, and they're sort of, they wrap and cushion organs to protect them. So one of the things that we have a lot of this material around is going to be our kidneys. So our kidneys are surrounded in this loose fibrous connective tissue and some fat. And it's basically so when you move around, your kidneys don't really take a hit. They are protective. And they're just around for wrapping and sort of protecting. A lot of your organs have this. And then reticular. This one's going to seem a little more, if you could see this purple line that's everywhere. Basically what that is, it's kind of like a skeletal system for cells, and cells can sort of hang on them and sort of have their arrangement. So it's something that the cells can hang on, have support, and not have to worry about floating away and things like that. So it's going to give cells support. A cell can attach to another cell, but more likely they're going to be attached to this reticular connective tissue. Adipose tissue, so inside of here is fat, and basically the more you have, the bigger these droplets get. The less you have, they shrink down. So what they're used for is a lot. Energy storage, insulation around some certain body parts. In the winter, we start to gather up fat because if we need to shiver, we're going to burn the fat down. Protection, we're going to use a little fat like around our kidneys. We have a little bit of fat around there too, and that's to prevent them from getting bounced around. And then you could see with these adipose tissues that the nucleus is also pushed to the side. So the nucleus is on the outside, and the rest of the cell is just covered in fat. That's pretty unique to these cells. There are dense fibrous connective tissues. So we talked about the loose kind. Our next video we'll talk about the dense kind.